Now in this session, we are going to discuss about the concept called global warming. Now at the school level also, this concept is going to teach and learn by the school students also. But still we are going to discuss about this global warming because we must study what exactly this global warming is, what are the connected concepts of global warming like acid rain, then greenhouse gases, ozone depletion, etc., and how to control these adverse effects of global warming. So, I would like to discuss these things in this presentation. This presentation contains the basic definition of this global warming, then atmospheric gases, greenhouse gases, Kyoto Protocol, acid rain, global warming effect, deforestation, carbon credit, ozone depletion, CRZ regulations, and I have also added some future perspective about this global warming. So normally, when the simple concepts are there, then I'm going to discuss in short, and wherever I feel that these concepts are maybe new things for you, then I will go for the details. So what exactly the global warming is? So everybody is talking about this global warming, and some are talking also about the climate change and temperatures. But what exactly the global warming is? The phenomena of increasing average air temperatures near the surface of the earth over the past 1 to 2 centuries, that is called as global warming. In a simple manner, it is the increase in air temperatures near the surface of the earth. So whatever the temperatures we have observed in the previous decades or centuries, that temperatures is increasing in past decades and in 2 centuries. So this phenomena is called as global warming. So climate scientists have since mid-20th century gathered detailed observations about this phenomena, that is temperature, precipitation, storms, etc., and their related influences, that is effects on the climate. So what exactly the effect of this temperature change on the animals, on the trees, on the human beings, on the structures, etc., and also that affects on the ocean currents. So we have to observe, analyze all these adverse effects, or it is also called as the effects due to the anthropogenic activities which is done by the human beings. So all these things should be analyzed so that we can understand how to control this global warming, right? So before that, from this diagram, you can understand what exactly the global warming is. So it is Earth, it is Earth's surface. Normally the sun radiated heat, and these radiations from the sun is going to reach to the Earth's surface. Now part of the heat is going to absorb by the Earth's surface. Some part may be reflected in the atmosphere, and some part of that heat may be absorbed by some of the gases which is in the atmosphere, right? So this is the natural phenomena, and the absorption of the heat in the atmospheric gases like carbon dioxide, methane, ozone, oxygen, etc., is needed also, because to sustain the for the sustainability, we have to maintain some of the temperature on the earth or in the atmospheric gases. But nowadays we are producing more gases artificially with the help of fossil fuels by using the fossil fuels due to automobile industry, due to construction industry, due to some other operations, and that is why the capacity of holding the heat in the atmospheric gases is increasing, and due to that the heat holding capacity as well as the temperature of the globe is increasing, and that phenomena is called as global warming. So we have added this fossil fuel utilization, that is coal, petrol, diesel, natural gas, CNG, LPG, etc. And after combustion of these gases, we are producing these carbon derivatives like CO, CO2, etc. And that is why the capacity of holding this heat into the atmosphere is increasing, and that is why temperature is also going to increase day by day. So this is the simple example, that is daily life example. The sun's energy passes through the car's windshield, and then energy is trapped inside the car, which is can't pass back through the windshield, causing the inside of the car to warm up. So we feel that the car is very hot if it is in the open area and if the solar radiations are available in that area. So this is the simple example of this greenhouse gas and how the sunlight or the sun energy affects in that particular area. So there is always the terminology which is used, that is climate change simultaneously with the global warming. But what exactly the difference between this global warming and climate change? Global warming is the increase of the Earth's average surface temperature due to a buildup of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. So we have discussed all these things due to carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, methane, etc. If the gases are increased, the holding capacity of heat in the atmosphere is also going to increase, and due to that heat, temperature of the surface or Earth's average surface temperature is going to increase. That phenomena is called as global warming. And what is climate change? It is a broader term that refers to long-term changes in the climate. So if you are thinking about the long-term changes in the climate, that after 5 years, after 10 years, after 50 years, after 100 years, what is going to change in the climate, then that phenomena is a climate change. So the parameters mainly is the temperature and precipitation. So this climate change, nowadays we are facing these issues, that we are also facing or observing the rains in the November also. In India, it was not the case in the previous decades or the centuries, but now the rainy season is also going to shift. So if the rainy season is going to shift, obviously that also affects on the winter season as well as in summer seasons. So these long-term changes in the climate is called as climate change. Then what are the effects of this global warming? If the holding capacity, if the greenhouse gases are increased, if the temperature is going to increase, then what are the effects of this? The major change is the increase in temperature around the world. So the average temperature of the world, average temperature of a particular country is going to increase. That is the main change. The average global temperature has increased by around 1.4 degrees Fahrenheit, that is 0.8 degrees Celsius, over the past 100 years, that is a century, according to the NOAA, that is National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administrations. So as far as this global warming is concerned, climate change is concerned, NOAA is the main authority for observing these changes in the climate. And these are the different effects of this global warming, that is rising sea level, increased temperature, then habitat damage and species affected, changes in the water supply. Then you can also observe the other changes, that is Portage Glacier in Alaska. So it is the image of 1914 and now it is in 2004. So these glaciers are going to melt. Then you can also observe the Colorado River, Arizona in June 2002 and now it is in 2003. So you can easily understand the difference between these rivers. Then we are going to use, and day by day the vehicle number is going to increase, and that is why the pollution from this vehicle, as well as we are also using more and more energy, that is why the load on the power generation units, the thermal power plants is also going to increase, and it is nothing but a pollution from coal, natural gas and oils. Then that affects on the CO2 percentage, CO2 quantity. So this graph clearly showing that from 1870 to 2000, how the carbon dioxide is going to increase. And it is in terms of ppm, that is parts per million. So it is near about 290 in 1870, now it is 370 in 2000, and it is also going to increase day by day. So how to check or measure this global temperature change or CO2? So for the CO2 measurement before 1958, that is the in Antarctica. So ice core data is the main reference for understanding how much CO2 is changed. So this is the CO2 measurement since 1958, Mauna Loa, Hawaii, and 1000 years of CO2 and global warming relationship. So as CO2 is going to increase from many years, in the same way, the temperature is also going to increase. So you can understand from this graph, the nature of this graph is near about similar. So as the CO2 is going to increase, temperature is also going to increase. So what will be the solution? How to control this global warming? How to control these temperatures? So we have to adopt some renewable energy sources rather than the non-renewable sources, rather than the fossil fuels. So due to coal, oil, natural gases, etc., after combustion of these coal, oil or natural gases, we are producing these CO2, methane, etc., and due to that the greenhouse gases and the holding capacity of that gases is going to increase, and for that purpose we have to skip that, or we have to reduce the utilization of these fossil fuels, and we have to increase the utilization of these renewable energy sources like wind power, solar power, and some fuel efficient technologies like electric car, that may be some solar based cars, etc. For daily life, how to control these problem, how to solve these problems? So we have to follow the simple things in the daily life. Turn off your computer or the TV when you are not using it. Take shorter showers. Heating water uses energy. Keep rooms cool by closing the blinds, shades or curtains. Turn off the lights when you leave a room. and use CFL, LEDs, OLEDs, etc. So new technologies are coming where in these technologies, in these types of bulbs or electrical or electronic gadgets, they are using very less energy as compared to the conventional ones. So in case of incandescent lamps, they are using more energy. So incandescent lamps are replaced by the CFL, that is compact fluorescent bulbs, and nowadays CFL is replaced by LEDs, and these LEDs are going to replace by other term in the future. Dress lightly when it's hot instead of turning up the air conditioning, or use a fan. Dress warmly when it's cold instead of turning up the heat or heaters. Offer to help your parents keep the air filters on your AC and furnace clean. Walk short distances instead of asking for a ride in the car. Plant a tree, so that this plantation of trees, because these trees are going to absorb the CO2 and they are producing the oxygen. So these are the different things which we can do easily for controlling or reducing the global warming effects. Recycling is one of the solution again. There are 7 R principles nowadays following. So one of the R is recycling rather than manufacturing or producing new one. Now we have discussed about this global warming. Now this is the atmospheric gases. So we must know what exactly the atmospheric gases available in the atmosphere. That is nitrogen, oxygen, argon, carbon dioxide, neon, helium, methane, krypton, nitrous oxide, hydrogen, and ozone. So most of the percentage from these atmospheric gases is 77 or 78% of nitrogen and approximately 21% of oxygen. So remaining gases are very less in the concentration in the atmosphere gases. Then you can observe these world carbon emissions. So due to these hydrocarbons, as we are using these fossil fuels and hydrocarbon compounds, after completion or incomplete combustion of these hydrocarbons, we are getting these carbon emissions. So in the China, near about 30%, United States 15%, then European 28, EU 28, 9%, India 7%, Russian Federation 5, Japan 4, and other 30%. So this is the chart or a pie chart which is giving you the idea of carbon emission percent in different countries. Now, as we are talking about the global warming, we have also talked about the greenhouse gases, and this is the greenhouse gases and greenhouse gases effect. So greenhouse gas is a gas that absorbs and emits the radiant energy within the thermal infrared range. So these IR radiations are going to absorb and radiated or re-radiated by the gases, and that is called as greenhouse gas. So from this diagram, from this picture, you can easily understand from the sunlight, this visible light is going to radiate and it is going to absorb by the surface. Some of the radiations are going to reflect, some of the IR radiations are going to absorb by the greenhouse gases, and some are reflected back. So these greenhouse gases cause the greenhouse effect on the planet. The primary greenhouse gases on the earth are water, that is water vapor, CO2, carbon dioxide, methane, CH4. And this diagram gives you the idea what exactly the greenhouse effect is. So we have discussed that these sun radiations is going to strike on the earth. So some part, most of the radiation is absorbed by the earth's surface, and that is why the earth's temperature is approximately 20 to 25 degrees Celsius for the sustainability. Then some solar radiation is reflected by the earth, and the atmosphere. Then infrared radiation is emitted from the Earth's surface, and some of the infrared radiation passes through the atmosphere, and some is absorbed and re-emitted in all directions by the greenhouse gases molecules. The effect of this is to warm the Earth's surface and the lower atmosphere. So near to the Earth's surface, there is an atmosphere approximately 11 kilometer height from the ground is called as atmosphere. There are different uh, structures or different layers of this atmosphere is present, and in these layers there are different greenhouse gases present, and with respect to that gases and their holding capacity of the heat, the temperature is going to change. So this is called as greenhouse effect. So the effect, that is nothing but the temperature change or the heat change due to the greenhouse gases is called as greenhouse effect. So this is the greenhouse gases and global warming potential, that is called as GWP in a commercial term. So GHG, that is stands for greenhouse gases. So CO2 is having GWP 1, methane 21, N2O 310, HFC, that is hydrofluorocarbons 2000 to 4000, per fluorocarbons, EFC is 5000 to 8000, then SF6 is about 10,000. So these greenhouse gases are having this much global warming potential. So from this data, you can understand how much global warming potential in that particular gas. Then the next concept is Kyoto Protocol. Now, most of the students are knowing about these global warming, greenhouse gases, etc. But many students are not knowing about the Kyoto Protocol. The Kyoto Protocol was the first agreement. Protocol, you know that this is the rules and regulations. So Kyoto, so this protocol is decided in Kyoto, Japan. That is why it is called as Kyoto Protocol. So this is the first agreement between the nations to mandate country by country reductions in the greenhouse gas emissions. So whatever the greenhouse gases are emitted by most of the countries, so how to control, what exactly the target is, so all these things is decided in this protocol, that is at Kyoto. That is why it is called as Kyoto Protocol. So Kyoto emerged from the UN Framework Conventions on Climate Change, that is UNFCCC, which was signed by nearly all nations at the 1992 mega meeting, popularly known as the Earth Summit. The framework pledges to stabilize the greenhouse gas concentration at a level that would prevent dangerous anthropogenic interference with the climate systems. Anthropogenic means the activities or the operations carried out by the human beings and that affects adversely on the atmosphere, that is called as anthropogenic activities. So the main objective of this Kyoto Protocol is to control these dangerous anthropogenic activities, to avoid these anthropogenic interferences for the climate change. Indirectly, we are going to control this greenhouse gas emission. So from these tables, you can understand what exactly done in the Kyoto and what is the history for this Kyoto. So in the 1827, greenhouse effect for atmospheric gases was considered. Then in 1958 to 70, greenhouse gases were identified, that is CO2, CFC, CH4, NTO. Then in 1970, radiations between GHG and climate change was established. In 1988, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, that is IPCC, set at UN. Then in 1992, Rio Summit, that is UNFCCC, is carried out. Then in 1997, Kyoto Protocol by UNFCCC countries. So this is the main point, that is our Kyoto Protocol, that is at in 1997. So before 1997, what was the development, and after Kyoto Protocol, what is the development. So in 2001, US exits from this Kyoto Protocol, that US is denied to follow these protocols. Then 2004, Russia ratifies the Kyoto Protocol. Then in 2005, Kyoto come into force with 141 member countries except US and Australia. Then in December 2005, 20th November to 9th December, 181 members instead of 141 now, and Montreal Conference, that is son of Kyoto, demonstration by Inuits, Eskimos, and then in 2007, Paris Conference, then some other things they have observed in the 2007, and these data is going to publish in 2007. Then in September 2007, An Inconvenient Truth gets Oscar award for the documentary. So this is an environmental friendly film. In that film, that is Al Gore, the film is by Al Gore, and in that film, how exactly these greenhouse gases are producing, what exactly the effect on the climate change, how to control the temperature, how to control the CO2, and what are the necessary steps for the future. All these things is discussed. Then there are changes on the biodiversity, deforestation effect, acid rain, etc. All these things should be, all these things have discussed in the documentary that is called as An Inconvenient Truth. So it is very good documentary. Who are the environmental engineers, for the environmental persons who are wants to know about the changes and how to control the climate change in the future. Then in the October 2007, IPCC and Mr. Al Gore get Nobel Prize for the peace. So these are the different developments regarding the global warming and Kyoto Protocol. Then some general obligations related to these Kyoto Protocols are enhancement of energy efficiency, protections and enhancements of sinks, reservoirs and GHGs, that is global greenhouse gases, then promotions of sustainable forest management practices, afforestation, reforestation, because we have observed and they have studied the deforestation's effects or adverse effect due to this deforestation, and that is why afforestation or reforestation is going to discuss in that Kyoto Protocol. Promotions of sustainable forms of agriculture, some modifications, some guidelines is given for the agricultural area. Then research, promotion, development, increased use of new and renewable forms of energy is discussed. CO2 subsequent rain, technologies and innovative environmentally sound technologies are going to develop. Then progressive reduction, phasing out of fiscal incentives, tax duty subsidies, exemptions in all greenhouse gas emitting sectors. So that is why in India also the government is going to give some subsidies to the renewable energy sources like solar, wind, etc. So if you are going to install the renewable energy sources, then government is going to pay some of the amount for that project. So that is nothing but the motivation or the promotion for that particular renewable energy sources, so that we can easily reduce the greenhouse gases. Promoting policies, measures to limit or to reduce GHG emissions in transport sector. So in the automobile sector, for the different vehicles, in the design as well as the substitutions or substitutes, like coal is substituted by oils. In some of the cases, oil is substituted by gases. In the automobile industries, in the vehicles, nowadays we are using unleaded petrol rather than a simple leaded petrol. Then it is again other modification that nowadays we are using more vehicles on the petrol rather than the diesels, and the next modification or change is we are using the gases like CNG instead of petrol and diesel. So these modifications or changes are nothing but we are going to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. Limitations and reductions of methane emissions through recovery, use in waste management and production, transport, distribution of energy. So again, in this case, the main focus is the reduction in the methane emissions. So methane is normally the gas which is comes from the biological activities or natural biological activities, and in many of the cases it is from the aerobic or anaerobic activities also. Limitation or reduction of GHG emissions from aviation and marine bunker fuels. So in the aviation area also and in the marine area also, they are going to use some fuels which are going to produce these greenhouse gases. So we have to do some modification, we have to research on some of the substitute fuels to reduce this GHG emission by controlling the hydrocarbons which are producing this type of emissions. Cooperate with other parties of the protocols. So if some of the companies or some other parties, some other countries are going to cooperate for innovating, for scale up designs, for changes in the design in the vehicles, in the automobile sector, in the thermal power stations, in the agricultural area, in the aviation area, whatever it may be. So there should be cooperation with other parties. So these are the general obligations in the Kyoto protocols. The specific obligations for different countries, and there is a transitional economies and developed countries. So specific obligations are there, like you can understand, that is Australia 108, Austria 92 likewise, and developing countries like India, Brazil, Mexico, etc. So the specific obligations: industrialized countries shall reduce GHG emissions, reduction of CO2 equivalent GHG emissions by 5.2%. So that is the specific obligation now. So we have to reduce this CO2 equivalent GHG by 5.2%. Reduction below 1990 levels in the commitment period of 2008 to 2012. Then by 2005, countries should make demonstrable progress in the achieving its commitment. And due to these things, we can observe that many renewable energy sources are using by the companies and by the government also. So there are many organizations which are motivated and funded by the central government in India also, that they are going to develop, they have already developed, and they are also developing some of the equipments or instruments which are based on the wind energy, solar energy, or some energy efficient technologies. Then flexibility for countries undergoing the process of transition to a market economy. So they are going to provide some flexibility for that operations also, which are the developing countries. And the main solution for these protocol following. So to follow these guidelines, to follow this protocol, we have to go for the joint implementations and then CDM technology, that is clean development mechanism, and carbon trading. So these are the different solutions or the mechanism which is decided or concluded in the Kyoto Protocol. So this is another concept, that is acid rain. So what exactly the acid rain is? So acid rain is nothing but the combination of different acids like H2SO4, HNO3 and HCl, that is sulfuric acid, nitric acid and hydrochloric acid. So generally the most part is H2SO4, that is sulfuric acid and nitric acid. So if it is the combination of these H2SO4 and HNO3, in the rain, then it is called as acid rain. So how it is producing and what are the sources of this acid rain is. So this image can illustrate you the pathway for acid rain in the environment. So this is the first, that we are using these fossil fuels in the automobile or vehicle, in the industries, factories, etc. And from these sources, from this hydrocarbon combustion, there are different gases producing like nitrogen derivatives, sulfur derivatives, that is called as SOx and NOx, SO2, SO3, etc., NO2, NO, NO3, or some nitrogen derivatives and their ions. So the emission of SO and NO are released into the air, that is the first step. Then the second one is this one. The pollutants are transformed into acid particles that may be transported long distances. So all these nitrogen and sulfur derivatives, these particles are transformed into acid particles for long distances. Then these acid particles then fall to the earth as wet and dry deposition. That may be in terms of dust, rain, snow, etc. So these acid particles are mixed with the moisture or rain or snow, and then the acid rain is going to form. So that may cause the harmful effects on soil, forest, streams and lakes, because these acidic rain or acidic particles are going to adversely affect on these forest, streams, lakes, soils or some human being, animals and materials also. So this is the simple phenomena of acid rain. So that is the combination of H2SO4, HNO3 and HCl. So these acids are produced due to the sulfur derivatives, nitrogen derivatives. Because generally if you observe, the sulfur is going to produce sulfur dioxide, and when it is contacted with the water, it produces the H2SO4, H2SO3 initially, and then it is converted into H2SO4, right? So in this way this sulfuric acid is going to produce. In a similar way, the other acids, that is like nitrogen, is also going to produce. So nitrogen is going to react with oxygen, it produces NO, then it is converted into NO2. When it is reacted with water, then it produces H2NO3. So in this way nitric acid is going to produce, and in a similar way the hydrochloric acid, that is chlorine or chlorine molecules or chlorinated ions, are reacted with the hydrogen and it produces HCl in the atmosphere. So the combination of all these acids is nothing but the acid rain. Then there is another concept like deforestation. So D means removal, forest we know that trees. So the removal of trees or removal of plant is called as deforestation. So under the banner that is called as development activities in the city or the metro area, nowadays we are cutting the trees. and we are cutting the jungles or the forest also for producing the different construction material as well as some other materials which is required for manufacturing the papers or the paper like products. So these deforestation may affect on the climate change, then desertification, then soil erosion, fewer crops, flooding, increased greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, and host of the problems for indigenous people. So we know that the plants or the trees are nothing but the sink of carbon dioxide. So naturally, these trees or plants are going to absorb the carbon dioxide and they are going to produce or giving out the oxygen. So oxygen is helpful for us and indirectly this carbon emission is going to decrease by these plants or trees. So if the deforestation occurs, so obviously the CO2 absorbing capacity of these plants or these forests are going to reduce and then this CO2 is going to sustain in the atmosphere. So if the CO2 percentage or the quantity of CO2 is more in the atmosphere, then again the holding capacity of heat and the temperature is going to increase. So greenhouse gas effect as well as the global warming is increased due to this deforestation. The deforestation affects the people and animals where trees are cut as well as the wider world. Then another part is loss of biodiversity. Biodiversity or biological diversity is a term that refers to the number of genes, species, individual organisms within a given species and biological communities within a defined geographic area ranging from the smallest ecosystem to the global biosphere. So whatever the animals, trees, birds, habitats, all these things are nothing but under the diversity. So whatever that area, a particular geographical area, in that area, if the all these habitats or birds, animals, trees are present, then it is called as biodiversity. Now what exactly the loss of biodiversity or biodiversity loss is there? A decrease in biodiversity within a species, an ecosystem, a given geographic area or earth as a whole. So nowadays the simple example is the number of tiger is going to decrease. So the tigers present before a century and tiger present in 2020 is different. In the same way, you can understand the different animals for different trees, different species, etc. This is nothing but a biodiversity loss for that particular species or for that ecosystem in that particular area or maybe on earth as a whole. So we have to understand this loss of biodiversity. Then there is another concept like carbon credit. Now we have discussed about the greenhouse gases, then global warming, and in that we have discussed that we have to reduce the carbon emissions. We have to control these carbon emissions. So how to control it and what are the remedies we have discussed. But if it is not followed, then there is another solution that is called as carbon credit. So it is just like a share in the share market. So it is of carbon, that is why it is called as carbon credit. So carbon credit represents 1 metric ton of carbon emissions. So 1 carbon credit is equivalent to 1 metric ton of carbon emission. So if you are going to reduce 1 metric ton of carbon emission, then you are gaining a carbon credit, right? So if you are having some technology of your innovating some technology, or if you are using some energy efficient technologies in your industries, in residential area or in some other places, but with the help of that, if you are going to reduce the 1 metric ton carbon emissions, then you will gain the 1 carbon credit. So after that gaining carbon credit, you have to go through some certifications, some audit by the expert person, and then they will certify that this carbon credit is valid, and then you can uh, go through the different medias, and you can sell this carbon credit to other companies or in the other countries also. Who is going to buy this carbon credit? The industries or the organizations or the individual who are producing more carbon emissions, and if that country or some legal requirement is there that your carbon emissions should be that much only, then if it is not feasible to control the carbon emission by that organization or individual, then they have to purchase the carbon emissions. It means the company or the organization or individual who are going to reduce these carbon emissions and gaining the carbon credit by the authorities after auditing and after verification by the authorities at the global level, and then the company who is producing more carbon emissions are have to purchase this carbon credit at that current value in the international markets. So you can gain the carbon credit by reducing the carbon emission. You can sell the carbon credit at that particular value in the international market, and with the help of this carbon credit, you can earn the money. So this is one of the way to gain the money, to earn the money with the help of reducing the carbon emission, and that is a good concept and which can motivate to the energy efficient technological person or to the industries who are ready to reduce the carbon emission by gaining some profits. And this overall phenomena is called as carbon trading. So we are going to gain the carbon credit. We are going to follow the guidelines given by the global experts. We are going to go through the audits, validification, and after gaining that credit, we can sell it as a share, like a share market, and that is why it is called as carbon credit. So this carbon credit and the gaining and selling of that carbon credit in the market is called as carbon trading, like a share trading, right? So this is one of the good concept which gives us the motivation for gaining the profit in the industry by reducing the carbon emission. Then there is another concept that is called as ozone depletion. Now this ozone depletion, why it is important? We know that there are various greenhouse gases, and from these gases ozone is one of the gases. If the ozone is already available on the atmosphere for protecting the sun rays, for protecting the UV rays from the sun, and that layer is called as ozone layer. So if already the ozone layer is there to protect these UV rays, how this ozone depletion is going to happen? So due to the CFCs, that is chlorofluorocarbon, due to this chlorine molecule, due to this chlorine atom, these ozone molecules are going to destroy. That is the characteristics of this chlorine, and that is the reaction of this chlorine and ozone. So one chlorine atom is going to destroy 1 lakh ozone molecules, and that is the potential of that chlorine atom or molecule or ion to destroy this much of ozone. And that is why these chlorinated products or CFCs are banned nowadays in the refrigeration and in other systems also. So these CFCs or CCl4 or methyl chloroform or HBFCs, HCFCs, etc. So if you are using this chlorine in that product, then we are going to lose this much of ozone, and that is why these chlorinated or chlorine derivatives are replaced by non-chlorine derivatives nowadays. That is nothing but the ozone depletion phenomena. And due to these chlorine atoms, there are some cases where ozone holes are created. So from these ozone holes, the ultraviolet radiation from the sun is going to percolate, and due to these UV rays, there are skin burn cases or some other effects on our body and animals. So these are the ozone depleting substances that is mentioned in the slide: CFC, CCl4, CHCl, HBSC, HCFCs, CH3 bar, Br, and CH2 BrCl. So from this diagram, you can understand what are the different sources of these ozone depleting substances. So generally, general solvent are used, that is approximately 25% sources of ozone depleting sources. Then red color indicates other transportation, approximate 24%. Then yellow color printing or surface coating. Then in the industries 13%, road vehicles 11%, residential 9%, and miscellaneous other percent. So all these all these fields are using these ozone depleting substances, and that is why it is called as ozone sources. So we have to substitute, we have to reduce the use of these ozone depleting sources. Then the next concept is CRZ. So it is called as Coastal Regulation Zone. So whatever the zone, whatever the area which is available near to the coast, it is called as coastal zone. And for this coastal zone, there is a specific regulations or rules which is prepared by the central government. It is called as Coastal Regulation Zone. So these rules govern human and industrial activity close to the coastline in order to protect the fragile ecosystems near the sea. So the main aim or objective of this coastal regulation zone is to protect the ecosystems which is near to the sea. So coastal means near to the sea, that area is near to the sea. So we have to protect these ecosystems which are near to the sea, and for that purpose these CRZ, that is CRZ regulations or rules are prepared. After the passing of the Environment Protection Act in 1986, CRZ rules were first framed in 1991. In all rules, the regulation zone has been defined as the area up to 500 meter from the high tide line. So this is the specific criteria, 500 meter from the high tide line. And the latest rules have no development zone of 20 meter for all islands close to the mainland coast and for all the backwater islands in the mainlands. So we can't develop, we can't do any type of activity which is called as development activities in this area that is near to 20 meter for all the main islands or mainlands or backwater islands, right? So these are some of the rules or restrictions in the coastal zone area. There are various rules and regulations under these CRZ rules and regulations. We will talk about this CRZ in the different session. Now from this discussion, you can understand there are some future scope for these or for controlling these carbon emissions, for controlling these hydrocarbons, or for substitution or the innovative idea or research for controlling this temperature, for controlling these carbon emissions. And that is why I have mentioned these new technologies may be clean coal burning, reduce energy use, energy efficient technologies, change in fuel, coal to natural gas or biomass, waste to energy, biomethanation of urban refuse, renewable non-conventional energy, example wind, solar, hydel, biomass, biomethanation, etc. Then we have to improve the carbon dioxide sinks, that is afforestation or reforestation, because we have already discussed that forest or the plant or trees are the sinks of CO2, and due to the deforestation under the development activities, we have cut many or number of trees in the forest as well as in the other areas. So we have to do afforestation or reforestation. Then plantation, then innovative business partners, technology holders, equipment suppliers, fuel suppliers, capturing or burning of CO2. These are the different future scope activities. Then latecomers in the training and other opportunities in the CDM, that is clean development mechanism. So we have already discussed about the global warming controlling techniques, and that is the joint implementation is one of the technique, and second one is CDM. So we are having these opportunities in this CDM. So carbon dioxide controlling is the main part. So we have to select this a particular energy sector, that is electricity, coal, industrial, domestic fuel, automobile or aviations. Because these industries or these field are consuming more hydrocarbon or carbon derivatives, and they are producing more and more CO2. In energy efficiency, industrial buildings, construction and transports. So we can focus, we can do some activities, we can do some research, innovation, or we must have some innovative ideas in this energy sector and energy efficiency activities, so that we can reduce the emission as well as we can gain the money or profit. Then second one is methane. So in the agricultural area, that is soils and rice cultivation, manure management, burning of agricultural residues, because in this area the methane is going to produce. So we can focus this agricultural as well as solid waste disposal on land, wastewater handling, waste incineration, and then enteric fermentations. So all these activities are producing this methane. So we can focus on the methane also. Then the other CDM opportunities are HFCs, PFCs, SF6, production or consumption of N2O, then agricultural and incinerations. So we can think about the energy efficient technologies, we can think about the reduction of carbon emission, we can think about the eco-friendly products, we can think about the eco-friendly technologies, we can think about the different technologies which are using or based on the renewable energy sources like wind, solar, or some energy efficient technologies, some electrical vehicle, etc. Thank you.